Greetings, exalted ones. Welcome to the fourth episode of Cross Format Fandom, which, as Timoro pointed out last time, is trucking along at a mighty great pace.
Oh, yes.
It's a little slower than we'd like it to be, but again, we have day jobs, or I guess night jobs.
They're just jobs, whatever.
They're just jobs. We're also on different schedules right now, so we don't even see each other all that often.
Yeah.
But today, we've got I think it's a pretty good topic. I've been hitting the ball back and forth with Timoro here for a little bit about soundtracks and scores and how they relate to video games, television, movies, and how that can enhance your viewing experience, or how there may be films where the soundtrack is in itself a celebrated piece of cinema related fandom, such as the Star Wars soundtracks, pretty much anything John Williams touches for the most part, but also some scores or maybe soundtracks that in some cases were maybe a little bit more successful than the film.
That's been a lot.
So mainly I want to touch on, just first, I'm a big score, orchestral soundtrack kind of guy. I've always liked soundtracks. Most of the CD collections that I have, and I still am one of those guys who has CDs. Yeah, I don't even have Spotify.
What's a CD?
It's like an 8-track.
What's an 8-track?
Like those Facebook memes. There's like, you got a tape and it's got the pencil next to it. It's like, share if you know what this is. But the main collection that I have is mostly orchestral soundtracks, and I still collect those to this day, although they are becoming less released and more released online. So just a couple things I want to touch base on that is that we're not saying at any juncture that the soundtracks we're mentioning are maybe better than some of the ones maybe you'd like or listen to. We're certainly open. Put in the comments either on the YouTube page or the Facebook page some of your favorite soundtracks. This is just a sampling of some of the discussion points that we have. I'll start off with letting Timoro get a couple words in, and if there's any particular series, television, video game, film where he's pretty excited or instantly knows what scene something is or what film something is purely from hearing a few notes. Timoro, do you got any points there?
I got a list here. I'll just kind of go over real quick and then we can go from there. So video game wise, I played a lot of video games when I was a kid. So
when you were a kid?
When I was a kid. Well, yeah. When I still play them. But anyways.
That's better. We're not going to judge you.
So for me, like scores or stuff for like video games, I could like hear one note and I'd be like, oh, I know where that's from. Basically anything Final Fantasy, from Final Fantasy 6 to 10, I could almost tell you exactly where that person is in the game from when they're playing. I played them so much. Chrono Trigger. Probably one of the greatest scores for a video game at that time. The guy who basically did every Final Fantasy score was on it, but to help some random guy that was working on some stuff in the background. He's like, hey, I want to do a score for a video game, and if you don't, I'm going to quit. And they're like, all right, well, sure. Here, take this one. We're just whatever. We're going through this. We'll see how it looks. And it became one of like the greatest freaking scores for a video game.
Little serendipity there.
He was a sound engineer.
Are we pointing at James?
We're pointing at James.
Is James even in there?
I don't see him.
No, we don't see him.
But I don't point at him anyways.
He's in the bathroom. Not hoarding toilet paper, by the way.
Good job. But yeah, so sound engineer decided, hey, I want to do a score, and became one of the best ones. Halo has one of the greatest like metal soundtracks, I guess you could say, for a video game. It is amazingly great.
I've heard samples of it, but I've never actually listened to the score. I mean, I might YouTube something later and just listen to it. But yeah, anyway, continue.
It's got some good like rock in it. Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past. You immediately know the theme.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Any tune from Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a soundtrack that
makes you interact with it.
Yeah, like it's still, I mean, people still use it as ringtones to this day. And yet Ocarina of Time didn't have the main theme in it. It was Majora's Mask, where you got a little bit of, where you got the actual theme on the one field level there. But Yeah, that's a good point because it really stood on its own because it didn't rely on that main theme.
Because every basically bit of music that was pronounced to the whole thing, you were literally either playing it or in an area that was playing it because you were there because you played it. So
Yeah.
it's pretty awesome. It made you interact with it, which made it such a better overarching theme for the game. So that I'm actually part of the soundtrack.
And that's a good point too, because there's so many I mean, everyone knows the Mario theme, you know. Dun, 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 dun. People still use it for ringtones. And there's a radio station locally here that their morning show is always playing video game music in the background. I was driving home one day and they had Turtles in Time going, and I knew what level it was. I'm like, oh, that's Technodrome. Let's kick Shell. And they had like Sonic music going, and it's amazing that you can not hear it, but like not register it so much maybe when you're playing it when you're younger, but then just subconsciously you hear it and you instantly wait, I know what that is.
Oh, hey, yeah, I like this. I remember when I played this and some people were like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, oh, this was Sonic, Emerald Green. I was spinning around the freaking loop.
Yeah.
Like
back before, but you know, when you're playing Sonic and you could actually just play in the video game world instead of the Hollywood studio saying, oh, we have to put Sonic in our world, because note to movie studios, you don't need to do that. We don't need to see those characters on Earth. Although I've heard Sonic is pretty good.
Sonic was good. I watched it.
Did you?
It was pretty dope, actually.
Nice.
So, to be completely honest, I honestly didn't notice the change they made.
Yeah, that's right. They changed him around. So like, I don't know.
I feel bad about it, but everybody made this big deal about it, and I was like, I look at him like, meh. I didn't really mind the way he looked, I guess. And then everybody's freaking out, and I was like, oh.
But good on the studio for listening to that. Right?
For sure. You know, and it worked because...
I mean, it's doing... If you went and saw it and you liked it, the reviews I've seen on it have been pretty decent, favorable. So
right. Yeah, it was pretty funny. It was good. Had lots of Easter eggs.
Nice.
It's one of those things where they put like the themes of levels in the show, kind of just in the background while they're wandering around talking to each other. And also, you can just kind of like, it was like someone had left the radio on and there's people talking in the room. You can kind of hear this theme, and something that's like the theme from one of the stages, or
all right,
the town was called like Emerald Cove or something like that, and it had the theme for Emerald Green and all that stuff, right? So it did really good. They did really good.
Nice. So what other video game choices you got there, or movie?
Well, so movies, just quick ones that'll just like, as soon as you hear it, you know it, kind of things, just right off the top of my head here. Jaws, Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, Star Wars.
So anything John Williams here,
basically so far. Terminator.
That's a good. I was thinking about that on the way over, actually. Yeah.
Top Gun. We know this because we talk about it all the time.
Yeah, the bell,
or the
Maverick
gong,
trailer,
or the gong, or whatever. As soon as I heard it, I immediately knew what it was. Braveheart.
Oh yeah, James Horner.
Yeah, the TV shows like Firefly, very unique opening, sung by creator Joss Whedon. So he wrote that and sung it. So I know it immediately. The Mandalorian obviously is really popular now.
Yeah, Ludwig. Yeah, that's fantastic. Really we'll get into a little bit more of franchises that have new composers sort of stepping in for things, but keep going.
Gargoyles.
The theme is great. The score is great. Oh, I don't know who did the score for that. I don't know who did the soundtrack for.
And just any cartoon from the 80s I know. So I want to start playing and I'll know the words to it. So,
yeah.
Like any 80s cartoon. So
we'll start off with the 80s cartoons, being that Timoro and I are, children of the 80s. Obviously, we have a propensity to go there. And so do most movie studios now, because they continually try to have properties from the 80s continually rebooted and remade. And we've covered that before.
Yep.
It was just announced the composer for the Ghostbusters Afterlife score was announced, and I saw the announcement online, and I saw kind of a little clip of his work. I mean, it wasn't anything that blew me away, but on the same page, you can't judge it by one thing, because he's not playing any of the themes from the film that you're going to hear. It's just a selected track that he'd done for some project, whenever. But that also ties into the fact that he is stepping into a pretty, I'm not going to say cinematic universe, but he is stepping into a franchise that is established. In terms of the soundtrack, the Ghostbusters score by Elmer Bernstein is really, really loved by most Ghostbuster fans. It has that mix like the film. It's either fun, funny, or scary, depending on what scene you're watching. And Ghostbusters 2, Randy Endelman did the score because Elmer Bernstein was working on My Left Foot, which he actually got an Oscar for. So I guess he made the right call there.
Cool.
But there was definitely something, I mean, it's an okay score, but I wouldn't say it's as celebrated. I wouldn't say it's as recognizable. Most people wouldn't know it from some other 90s romantic comedy score. Like it didn't really have a whole lot of tracks that jumped out, and they haven't actually ever really released it. I've heard rumors that the original tracks were lost. I've heard rumors that it was lost in a fire, or maybe Sony was just like, yeah, we're not going to release it.
It's not that good.
Yeah, that might be true. Some people love it, but that being said, is this new composer going to tie in some of those themes that the original film had? Because the Ghostbusters 2 didn't do it. It didn't have the main sort of uppity theme that the Ghostbusters had. The teaser trailer for Afterlife alone has Elmer's score right at the beginning of it from the first film.
I think he's probably going to do a lot of tying in from the first one.
I would hope so.
Because just from seeing the teaser trailer and then the trailer, they're pulling heavily almost from the first one anyways.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a lot of Elmer in there with the new guy's a little twist on it, I think.
And they have
be pretty close.
Fun, scary,
fun, scary.
Jason keeps saying that it's a love letter to Ghostbusters, and from everything I've seen so far, it is, and from the individual I know who are involved with it, it certainly sounds that way. But you can never really be sure. Like someone's, like, to be honest, anytime I watch any kind of interview with Star Wars writers or Star Wars game creators, are all like, "Oh, we're huge Star Wars fans." Okay, everyone is a fan. It's just a matter of how deep of a fan are you?
How deep is your fandom?
How deep is your fandom? And can Kevin Smith is a great example. He's doing a new He-Man Masters of the Universe Revelation series for Netflix, which I'm excited about. I'm not really crazy about the fact that it's going to be an anime style, because I don't like that animation, but I'm okay with it if it's going to be a good story. It's not enough to ruin it for me. But a lot of people sort of go, okay, well, Kevin Smith is doing it, it'll be okay. And Kevin's a great guy, but Kevin is kind of like the studio nerd.
Yes.
Like, he's on the set for episodes 7, 8, 9, and he's talking about stuff he likes that he can talk about. Honestly, the studios sort of position Kevin in a place where, they know he's a fan, so they give him access to things most fans don't get, but they know he's a professional director and writer and such. So he can sort of balance the fandom with the professionalism. The problem sometimes is the professionalism sort of overtakes a little bit more than the fan. Like, Kevin, it's okay. You can say something isn't good. Not everyone will agree with you. Like, he went on like Star Trek, the motionless picture. It's like basically 2 hours of glory shots of the Enterprise. And he's not wrong on that. But, Paramount or CBS, if they were to invite him onto the set of Picard or whatever might be going on right now, is he going to be as maybe harsh about that? Probably not, just because in Hollywood it's who you know, which is how a lot of composers get the gigs that they have. They just know someone. Touching back on the 80s references there, Shuki Levy, who did the score for the real Ghostbusters, for He-Man, Masters of the Universe. He did Power Rangers.
You name it, man.
And there's an endless list that you can go on. Like, so many composers probably shaped a lot of your childhood, and most of us don't know their names. Yeah. A good example, Bear McCreary, he did the score for The Walking Dead, or does the score for The Walking Dead. And that score never really blew my mind much. I haven't watched the show for years and years, but I noticed when Outlander premiered that he did the music for that and just nails it. And, he's got the right mix of the right, when to use bagpipes, when to use flutes, when to sort of have a harder English edge with the music, and balance that with continual change in, you know, because the series itself deals with time travel.
Well, yeah, and settings.
Yes, exactly.
So it's a little. I think it makes more sense to be more clear on what he's going to be using. Walking Dead was like, hey,
here's tones.
Here's zombies.
Yeah.
They're attacking.
Lots of
what music are we going to use? Like high screechy flutes. You know, stuff's happening. You know, violins. You know, just those. Well, things are attacking. Surprise. Kind of like music, but for Outlander, yeah, he'd need to be a little more.
Especially since he does like the main themed Outlander, the Skyboat song, like he's got like countless iterations of that. He changes it every season. Like I've got all the soundtracks, and every disc has 2 or 3 different versions of it. He mixes it with Caribbean drums. He mixes it in French. You know, it always is very, very good at that. And the other point, the reason I bring him up is he did the score for Godzilla King of Monsters.
He did?
And yes, he did. You'd never know.
No.
Unless, you know, I remember watching the credits going, oh my, Greg did this? And he's a huge Godzilla fan, and he put the original Godzilla theme in there, which was not in the 2014 or 2014 film.
2014. That one doesn't exist. But continue.
Anyway, well, for a lot of fans it does. But I enjoyed the film. But that was one of the things I was sort of, it's too bad the theme isn't in there. And King of Monsters, you know, the theme is very prevalent. It's there, and even they redid the Blue Oyster Cult Go Go Godzilla at the end. So, and he has Mothra theme, Ghidorah, like he knows the backstory of the characters. He researched it. And he isn't afraid to go, yeah, this is my score, and I'm going to have my own works in here, but I'm also not going to show these iconic characters and not put their scores there. Like,
right.
Danny Elfman got the gig to do Justice League, and he put the score from his Tim Burton Batman film in there. There's tones of it. He doesn't put a full out, but he puts it there. He puts a bit of John Williams Superman theme in there. And someone had actually asked him in an interview, you know, oh, that's an interesting choice. Why did you do that? And he just plainly said, because I made the theme for Batman. I don't know why it was changed. John made the theme for Superman. With respect, why would you try and make it different? He's okay with different actors and different stories portraying it, but he likened it to James Bond, where the score of the film can be different, but that main theme should be the same, because that is in itself like the character.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to redo it to show it's a different timeline or a different like Marvel movies sort of have. Alvin Silverstreet is another great composer. He did Avengers, Captain America, First Avenger. He's really great. He did Back to the Future as well. He's fantastic. But the other composers who do Marvel movies don't, I mean, apart from the main theme, they don't, for the Avengers, they don't really transfer things over too much. Each film does sort of have a different score to it. Like Captain America Winter Soldier is a bit different than First Avenger in terms of the music.
Yeah, they definitely kind of like throw some stuff in. Like when the big Avenger movies, you kind of hear little tinges of Cap's like theme when it kind of wanders around or comes into scene. You're like, you just get a little glimpse of it.
Yeah, the little bit of the horns there.
Tony, you kind of always kind of hear a little more
bit of more of a metal edge. There's always like AC/DC
or something, right? Like something like that, because it's like their thing, right? So they kind of throw it in there, but yeah, overall they have kind of their own little throughout the movies, right? But
and with that, as I mentioned, just with composers stepping into franchises that have already been started, talking about Greg and coming into the Godzilla soundtrack and going, yeah, of course I'm going to put the Godzilla theme in here. Why would I not? It's a Godzilla movie. I always find I respect a composer a little bit more for that. I'll use the reference, Michael Giacchino, he did the soundtrack for Up, the Mission Impossible films. He did the Kelvin Star Trek timeline. This is the J.J. Abrams, Chris Pine Star Trek films. Mm-hmm. He did the soundtrack for that, which is fantastic because he not only uses the Alexander Courage and Jerry Goldsmith versions of the theme from the prime timeline, if you will, but he also utilizes his own touch on it. And I remember seeing the 2009 film, and just that score was just really energized.
It was.
But he didn't shy away from using the themes.
Good call there, energy.
I didn't even think about that. It's a good thing you called me on that, because I would have kept going. Well, I appreciate that you caught it. The way to go into a score, I think, and I'm not a composer, it's just I listen to a lot of orchestral soundtrack music, so I can sort of tell when a composer knows the material they're talking about. Michael Giacchino did the score for Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, which a lot of people, it's kind of like it is a prequel, but it's got a very divided audience as well. A lot of people love it, a lot of people don't.
I love it.
I agree. It's out of the Disney live action films that they've produced with Star Wars, that's my favorite one.
Mine second is Solo. Eat it, everybody.
Don't add him, bro. And that's fine. The score for that wasn't bad either. It didn't register enough for me to, okay, I know that theme. But he was another, I can't remember the composer for it, but he also used a lot of John's stuff too. And Michael Giacchino did as well for Rogue One. And what I really credit him doing is the scene where you see the Death Star being built. He comes up with an almost alternate version of the Imperial theme. He doesn't use the Imperial theme. He stated that that's Vader's theme. That's Vader's theme. So he wanted to show the Empire without Vader there. So and it's a great theme, and he has a wonderful theme for Orson Krennic that I'm a little jealous of, because I thought it would have been a great theme for Darth Tyrannus, Count Dooku from the prequels. He didn't really get a theme.
Yeah, he was Dooku. He didn't need one.
Christopher Lee, he doesn't need anything. He's that awesome.
He's that awesome.
But the fact that he not only, I honestly think he nails early John Williams, like lots of heavy brass, he just captures it really, really well. I found it was a really great score. And if you don't like it, that's okay. John, of course, did the soundtrack for episodes 7, 8, and 9. But the thing with those particular episodes for me is the same sort of hiccups I had with the prequels. Apart from a couple main themes, in the prequels it was, the love theme from Attack of the Clones and Duel of the Fates from episode 1 and the Battle of the Heroes from episode 3. There really wasn't a whole lot that jumped out with new themes or thematics. It just...
But you're John Williams and you already made 6. All your music,
but when you do the prequels, yeah, but
he made them all. His themes are already there. He doesn't really need to do it. He just does put that in. Done. Well, that's all he needed to do for those 3 films. Was just put my music in there. We're finished.
The sequel trilogy I found though had the same sort of hiccup. He had Rey's theme, and he had the Resistance theme, and he had a bit of I wouldn't say a theme for Kylo Ren. It was like a tone, like a couple notes. And it works great, but again, the rest of the soundtrack I find sounds a little bit more like his prequel work. Like, I like to use the word, when I talk about his prequel work, I like to use the word whimsy, because there's lots of high little flutes, and that comes across in the sequel trilogy as well, apart from those main themes. So I just thought Michael did a really good job of going heavy. And it's not to say John's work isn't fantastic. It is fantastic. It's just the score doesn't always match what I think you imagine it to be.
Yeah.
And the other thing to keep in mind is episode 9 especially. The soundtrack's, it's fair. There isn't really a lot of new ground on there. But that being said, in my opinion, that film is a bit of a hot mess to begin with. So I can only imagine scoring it was...
a hot mess.
Yeah, probably. And if you like Rise of Skywalker, that's okay too. I'm not saying you can't. It's not my favorite out of the saga. But with that, now that John has said, okay, I'm done for sure now. We've had Michael do the score for Rogue One. We've had Ludwig do the score for The Mandalorian, which is fantastic.
Yes, it is so good.
You've got
he captures it just
he does
perfectly. Just
space western. It's got the bit of tribal notes to it.
Yeah.
It's got the western twang to it,
and then a little just updated stuff.
Yeah, and some classic notes there. We haven't dealt with the Force themes or anything like that.
Which we don't really need to at this point.
Yeah, because no one really knows what it is, and they're clever about that. We don't want to spoil anything. Although if you've been online, that's kind of difficult not to do.
If you haven't watched it, get out from the rock you're living under.
Yeah, or if you finally manage to get Disney Plus, honestly though, like no matter where you're living, if you don't have Disney Plus, there's no way you haven't pirated this or downloaded this somewhere. Like, let's just put it on the table.
But don't do that.
Yes, exactly. Don't do that.
Don't pirate things.
Don't steal this book.
Wink, wink.
The aspect we're moving into now is that now you have some of these classic composers that have moved on or passed on, in cases like James Horner, who did the score for Braveheart, Titanic, Avatar. You're getting new composers stepping into some of these franchises that have been around for a while. Hans Zimmer did Man of Steel, did the Dark Knight trilogy. So he sort of had to take Danny Elfman's work and John Williams' work and say, okay, how do I make a new Superman theme? How do I make a new Batman theme? And I enjoyed both those scores.
I did. For those, though, like that, it's something we probably could talk about coming up here. But like, those are the things that, like, those are those. You don't change those things. Like, those are things you recognize immediately. Like, if they were going to play the Man of Steel Superman theme, I probably wouldn't catch it real quick. But you play John Williams Superman theme, I immediately, oh, that's Superman.
Yeah, the instantly the notes,
like just the music, everything. Like, don't make a new one. If you want to take what they had and change it slightly, but have that theme there, I'm cool with it. But changing it, like, I get it. It's a new film, it's new, all this stuff, but they should have just kept the normal theme if you wanted to just change it up a little bit, but keep that main theme for Superman. Because that's just the embodiment of Superman. You can't, there's nothing else.
You're not gonna make it any better than that.
Right, because nobody else will know. Like, you play that, I guarantee you everybody will know what you're playing when you play, if you play that for somebody. If you just walked up to a person on the street and said, what is this? And like, oh, that's a Superman theme. Now, if you did that for the Man of Steel one, well, who's this? I have no idea who the hell that is. Somebody would. Well, you would. Yeah. But like,
I would, yes.
But most people would be like, I don't know. But those are the things that you shouldn't change. Like Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. You don't think of Game of Thrones without thinking the theme.
Yeah, Ramin Djawadi.
Right.
Also did the score for Pacific Rim. Mm-hmm.
Which was great.
And the Masters of the... Oh, no, that was Joseph LaDuca. Never mind. Sorry. Go ahead.
But like, those are like things that you just instantly know. And those help make the shows or the movies or whatever, because they're so good. And like, it came from a book. So there was no theme for that show.
Right.
They made that, and that is now the embodiment of Game of Thrones.
Okay, sorry, folks. We had a bit of a technical difficulty there.
Did we just get all that stuff we just talked?
Probably, but we'll have James edit it out. So just coming back, we had a technical difficulty, so you have to excuse us. We had to jump a little bit. Timuro, you were talking about the embodiment of Game of Thrones with the score by Ramin Djawadi.
Yeah, just that. Because it was a book, they had to make a theme for it, but now that is so recognizable as Game of Thrones. So the score for it is just now what Game of Thrones is. I'm not talking about other things about it, but like there's other
about the music. Just talking about the music.
There's other like shows or TV or movies or games or anything that just like. That's what that is. It came from nothing, and it is what it is, and that's what is so recognizable about it. And that's what makes it so great, and it makes what you were doing, video game or watching a movie, that much better, or makes the soundtrack better than what you're watching.
It encompasses it.
Yeah,
and that's a good point. The theme for Thrones, because I've got the soundtracks for all those too. The funny thing is, the first season there, the producers had talked about, and Dan and Dave talked about. They met with Ramin. And he wasn't really looking to do the show, but they said, just take a crack at the theme, right? They were just basically trying to build a catalog of composers to sort of decide who they're going to go to.
Yeah.
And he did that theme. and they were like, okay, well,
We have to.
we have to use you now.
because it's so good.
You can't say no.
Yeah.
And they made absolutely the right call there. It's a fantastic. There's so many themes in there. There's the Stark theme, the Lannister theme. There's so many. Now with our pop culture being what it is, Reigns of Castamere,
Reigns of Castamere.
songs. You're absolutely right. The score. Whenever you hear that, that's Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Or let's go new. Witcher. Toss a coin to your Witcher.
Witcher. Yeah.
That thing just exploded, and it is amazing. I've listened to the part of the soundtrack like 3 times. I've watched that show like 4 times. Like, if you like it, you like it. You don't. It's one of those.
Yep.
I'm not in the middle. It's not I'm in the middle. I could either way. No, it's you either like it or you don't. And the soundtrack is just so good. All the little like themes from Yesker and all the songs he has are on there. It's just,
they do a really good job of melding it, because sometimes it's hard to tell if you're listening to a track from the video game. Like, I know the Witcher 3 had a really good soundtrack, and sometimes I have noticed there sounds like, okay, this composer sort of gave that video game a listen to, because there are some very familiar inflections.
yeah. Well, because again, it came from a book, so you can't really. So the guys who basically made the game kind of already had the corner on what it would sound like. So you got to definitely take from the game. So it gives people that.
Yeah, for sure. Like,
especially you got to just give a little bit back.
When Henry does the evil is evil, he changes it a bit, but he still has to have that same inflection, because regardless of, this is a live action series, it's not the video game. Yeah, but the video game has a certain actor make that voice, and right off the bat, if you don't have some similar inflection to it, people aren't going to like it.
Right.
The James Arnold Taylor, who voices Obi-Wan Kenobi for most of like Clone Wars and Rebels and animated video games and such, he does a pretty good young Ewan McGregor doing a young Alec Guinness.
Yeah.
And Stephen Stanton, who portrayed Obi-Wan Kenobi in Rebels as old Ben as we know him, also did a really good job. So you have the same thing with music. You have John Williams, coming back to Johnny there, had to listen to his original themes for the original trilogy, and then do the prequels and sort of put those themes not as the main stage, but start to work them in there. Some themes are just always like the Force theme.
Yeah, well,
Ben Kenobi's theme is always going to be that.
Like, you can't really, you can throw themes of Vader, but you can't actually have.
Yeah, the Anakin
March,
Skywalker theme with the Vader at the end there, and they did this. It's not in the main part of the film, but in the credits of it, and Attack of the Clones, actually, they play the love theme, the Across the Stars, and they end it with a bit of Anakin's theme again, and then the Vader theme. And I was like, you guys should have just kept that in the main track for it. Would have been great.
For sure.
With the kind of projects that are coming out, we talked about reboots and remakes. They're going back and doing another RoboCop, which is technically RoboCop 3, although there's already been a RoboCop 3. They're sort of
but that
reboot.
They just. But I don't know. The reboot was pretty good.
I didn't mind that either. But the thing to that reboot that ties into this discussion that I really sort of bought into right off the bat and said, okay, I think I'm in for this ride, was they play the dun 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 dun. They play that theme right near the beginning of it. So you're like, yep, okay, I know what I'm watching. Yeah. I know exactly where I am at.
Yeah.
And the Ghostbusters Afterlife trailer has sort of gotten, some people were like, they don't have the Ghostbusters theme in there. But the point to that is, as Jason has stated, that this story is about a family who doesn't know their connection to that world yet. And if you've seen the trailer, you get that impression. Paul Rudd plays a teacher who has to tell these kids what a ghost trap is.
What?
So
what? You don't know what a ghost trap is?
What? Didn't your dad tell you about this? So
I don't have a dad.
it's interesting that I think that composer will obviously have to. They do it in the trailer though. They have that little piano,
Just
which is from the first film when Dan Aykroyd says, "Listen, do you smell something?"
And then
and so
it's so iconic.
Yeah, and the fans who know the score instantly okay, I know what this is.
They're like, yes.
But itself is an Easter egg. So, and I don't know who did the score for that trailer. Maybe it was the same guy who's doing the score for the film. And if that's the case, I don't think we got a lot to worry about.
Yeah,
it's just
gonna nail that shit.
The composer shouldn't shy away from the work who's come before, because if you can respect the work they've done and then add your own, like I said, Michael Giacchino's Star Trek score. If you go watch any sort of Star Trek in concert now, like the Windspear, whatever Philharmonic, back when people could congregate together and we weren't saying 250 people can't do it.
Social distancing, people.
Social distancing.
I've been doing that my whole life, so just continue doing that.
Timur and I work on nights, so we don't have to worry about any of contact with people.
What are people?
That score that Michael's done is worked into the classic themes from DS9 and Next Gen and the original films. So he sort of cemented his place and said, yeah, I have nods to these original works in mind. They're there. Obviously, I'm going to put them there. These are the same characters, even if they're different events or different timelines, they're the same characters. But because it's a different timeline, I'm going to add a little bit of some distancing and differences here, which turned out to work okay. He also did the score for Doctor Strange, which is visually that movie's
mind bending.
Yeah, so
great.
Good usage. I like that word, mind bending. I see what you did.
Yeah.
So a composer who's not afraid to try something new and still have their own nods to things, which Solo did.
Yeah.
I did enjoy the opening to it. And there wasn't a huge amount of themes that stood out that he did, but the score works.
Yeah, no,
works.
Theme-wise, like Solo, like Han Solo in the movies, he had his themes, I guess. More overarching, more of the other way, but he was there. But
yeah, John Williams wrote the Han Solo theme that you hear in Solo.
Yeah,
but the other composer sort of took that and utilized it for the main score.
Sure.
And then put some of his chase stuff from Empire and A New Hope in there. And that's what was great about that score is Solo was fun.
Yeah, because like again, he is still part of the universe, so putting those themes in, like the Imperials and all those guys, right? Like
right.
That time was happening. Use those themes. But he also did his own thing because, again, there's not a lot of people that were in Solo that were in any other movies that could have themes to continue to play through.
Yeah, we really only see Chewie, Han, and Lando, I believe.
In Lando, you got Lando's in there when you saw him. When you
little
see
bit.
him. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Just little tinges, again, little things to just, get tip of the hat.
Nod of the hat.
Tip of the hat to, hey, I know you. Good job.
So much so that they have Billy D dressing like young Lando in Rise of Skywalker.
Which was awesome. So
it's a nice little nod. But the video game, market obviously is continually changing. And we talked about, Halo having a very specific score. You and I both love a video game series. It's called Uncharted. And well, I'm gonna just hold off on how many aneurysms I have whenever I read new updates to the live action film. They've talked about certain casting of people. We'll come back to that at another time when there's more meat to chew on there. But the score itself for the video game, for the first three games, Drake's Fortune, Among Thieves, and Drake's Deception, were done by a guy named Greg Edmondson. And I'd never heard his work before, or thought I hadn't ever heard his work before.
And then you did.
And I used to just put the soundtracks on YouTube and just listen to them while I'm working on stuff. And they're great soundtracks. And the games really just work with those scores. Like, he writes the music well for if he's in the jungles, he's got the the whistles and
almost like birds.
the right
Winds.
Tibet. He's got the right bit of the chimes are there. Like he knows the geography of where the story is taking place. And again, I hadn't thought I'd heard his work before, but watching some reruns of King of the Hill, which I used to watch very regularly, and I still do when I can, because I think it's a great animated show and it's smart comedy. I didn't realize this, but looking at the credits, he does the score for that show, or did the score for it. Not the main theme with the cowbell. He does the score that plays during the actual show. And that like the Bear McCreary just sort of, oh wait, what? Huh? You sometimes are so used to seeing a composer do one sort of method, I guess, or one type of music that you sometimes forget that they can do other things.
Yeah.
And they're adaptable.
They actually do other work?
Yeah, I suppose it's seeing an actor that you're so used to seeing in one role in something else suddenly, and you're like, wait, what?
They do that?
They do that? Yeah. Typecasting. It's not, I mean, I guess it's still a big thing in Hollywood, but
I honestly, they shouldn't care.
no,
Are you still making money? Yeah.
which is
Who cares?
funny because actors generally get paid more the more times they play a character, because the likelihood of that, of being typecast is higher, which is weird because most of these actors are trying to get onto series and trying to get on televisions where they play reoccurring characters, and it's not so much the paycheck all the time, it's the stability of the character and being able to tell a story for more than one or two episodes. So now, and same with television, Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon, like television is not where actors go to die anymore.
Oh, quick recent one, Hunters on Amazon Prime.
Oh, that's with Pacino.
Pacino. Did you ever think you'd see Pacino on a television show?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and the Irishman. It's,
You know that guy? You don't see him like, I think when I think Al Pacino, I think, Heat. You know, I'm like
Dick Tracy.
Dick Tracy. We're up here, right? Not in television land. And then all of a sudden here he is, and fantastic job. Man did a fantastic job in the show,
yeah.
as he should.
We're talking about Star Trek. The composer for that utilizes a bit of the Jerry Goldsmith theme from Next Gen, the motion picture of Star Trek. It's not there prevalently, but there's bits of it,
and you know it if you know it.
Yeah, and that's another one. He's got to sort of do music that certain characters from Voyager and Next Gen have shown up on it alongside Patrick Stewart. So there's nods to those scenes, and they work. And at the same time, you have to tell a new story. The Picard series isn't about the Enterprise crew going on and doing this. So there are notes of it there when these people are there, but it's really about Picard's sort of quest in what he's trying to accomplish on that show, which I think is a really ballsy thing to do, particularly with an actor hasn't played that role for 20 plus years, right? I think that Nemesis was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Pretty close, if not.
So, he's played Professor X plenty of times and exited that character, which I have fears about when it comes to Picard. It's the same when Harrison Ford's coming back as Han Solo. I'm like, yay. And I was like, oh God, wait, I know what that means.
I was thinking the same, like, can he pull it off? And then I watched like the first episode. I was like, yep, he can.
Yeah, he's
right back
there's
into
times,
it.
Yeah, there's times you look at him and that's the Captain Picard we know.
But then you're like, if you don't watch the show or not, just his journey or whatever, real quick, is that you see why he's on his journey and why he's Picard, but not quite at some.
Yeah, he's an older Picard, and he's
in his 70s, 80s now?
Some of those lines. So, he's still got that hard edge at times. He's he's not in command of a ship. He's sort of got this group of people he needs help accomplishing this thing with, which is great because it shows the adaptability that Picard has that I don't necessarily know a lot of other Starfleet captains like Sisko and Janeway with respect to their characters. I don't know that seeing them 20 years later would really have the same impact. And I'm really excited for that, not only because the score works, but just the direction of the show itself. We'll see what happens with, you know, obviously Afterlife and some of the upcoming films. I know Bond, right? We have a new Bond that was supposed to come out next month, but has been pushed back because of the the COVID-19 fears, which are, when we're recording this, are pretty. It's a pretty big pandemic right now. You know, lots of self-isolation going on, lots of toilet paper buying, which we don't understand. But
whatever, that is what it is.
But we'll see, you know, how that affects the film industry more. You know, it's going to continually affect it. We'll just see how long that is. But with regards to the Bond being pushed back, is obviously there's a score for that Bond, just like there is a score for everything else. And typically the main song tries to sort of work some of the composer's theme for that into it. If you listen to most Bond intro songs sung by whoever it is, whether it's Chris Cornell or Shirley Bassey or Sheena Easton or whoever it is, the score is generally worked into the main title song. Not all the time.
No.
But it is like Sam Smith's Writing on the Wall. It's pretty right up there.
I think it'll be the same for Billie Eilish's. I heard it. I listened to it. I didn't hate it, but it wasn't too bad. It is better than some themes, some of the intros or whatever for it.
Yes, there have been some that did not.
Meh. But it's decent for what they're trying to accomplish for this movie. I think and we know it's Craig's last outing. Yeah, so I think they'll be working that in a little bit too, like with Sam Smith. Sam Smith was pretty throughout the whole movie. Yeah, you could hear it. So there's some things I could hear in Billie Eilish's that I could see going through.
Yeah, you hear certain notes and you're like, okay, I think that's part of the main theme.
Right,
There's one part in her song where I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's the note of the main theme. I mean, Chris Cornell, You Know My Name, that's, you know, there's scenes where he's with Vesper on the train and there it is.
It's playing.
So, but the main Bond, you know, the guitar riff from Dr. No there, that's always there somewhere in it. So we'll see with, you know, come back to Kevin Smith and Masters of the Universe, you know, Joseph LaDuca did the music to the 2003 animated reboot, which I enjoyed for the lore of it, and it was a different animation style. It was great, but he didn't take the Shuki Levy, you know, dun 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 dun. Like he didn't, to my knowledge, didn't utilize that.
Well, from things I've read and just things that Ken Smith said, I think he's going to be taken heavily for that because his story is literally a continuation of that story from the 80s cartoon when it ended.
It's one of those things where like, are they going to use it? Are they going to use the same intro?
From what if they can, I'm sure they have the rights to it so they can use it. They'll probably update it a little bit more and you'll probably get the same, but not quite, a little updated version.
That would make sense, or at least, you know, some sort of related theme to it.
Yeah, and then I think because they have different actors playing them, so I think they'll do it and then have like...
Is Mon-El
get Mon-El there
from Supergirl.
To freaking to voice while he's doing the theme, right? He's doing it, right? So that'd be kind of cool to just have that updated version of it, but have that same theme, right? Just maybe a little updated sound, I guess you say.
Yeah, but
I hope so. I hope so. Yeah.
You know, and these are soundtracks and scores that we, you know, find memorable, and can't really imagine not hearing with that. But there's also some soundtracks that sometimes sort of eclipse the film itself. I'll use two examples here. They're not orchestral soundtracks, but like the Daredevil soundtrack that Ben Affleck was in, like that's how Evanescence got launched. Like everyone had the soundtrack, but
nobody watched it.
No one like, you know, most people didn't really see the movie all that much. The other one, like Wild Wild West, like everyone knew Will Smith's song.
I liked Wild Wild West, to be honest. I did. I thought it was fun, a little fun movie. It was funny.
It's the same humor as Men in Black.
Way out there, but I thought it was hilarious. I enjoyed it. That and I just love Will Smith movies, but
I love Selma Hayek.
Yeah, well, who doesn't? Come on, Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh yeah, The film, not
the film, not the show,
series.
not the series. But anyways, anything Selma Hayek's in, it's just
reboots.
amazing. It was a good fun movie, but the soundtrack was definitely better than the movie.
Yeah, and there's again, there's other examples that aren't coming to me at the moment, but I know there's been
There's
plenty of
more than
things
two.
like-
Let's say
yeah, there's more than two. There's also you've got the Pirates of the Caribbean composer.
yeah.
I never remember his name, but they worked alongside Hans Zimmer a little bit, and you've also got scores that do some. Tron Legacy was a good example. I think Daft Punk. I think
Daft Punk
did the score, and they listened to a lot of Hans Zimmer, and they worked with him a little bit, and that's a great score. It's a great score. It's got it's got a great main theme to it. It's something you can work out to and listen and just chill to. It's something I can do like workout. I used to run to it. It's a great score. It ties in really well. Whether or not we see another Tron movie, I don't know. That was an example of a remake or a sequel that it's like Blade Runner 2049.
It was like sequel reboot.
It was a sequel. You have sequel
But
reboot. It's like Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's
yeah,
connected to the original. It's
and
passing the
they're
torch.
trying to reboot it again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's like Blade Runner 2049.
Well, that was
Like,
that was a sequel
if you-
for the fans. That's it.
Yeah. And I view Tron Legacy the same way. If you were a Tron fan or a Blade Runner fan, you probably liked those two
I did
movies.
100%.
But if you were just a general movie going person, you were like, okay, I don't
I get
guess
it.
it's all right.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the sort of feedback I got. But
Well, speaking of 2049, it did kind of get a little reboot from it because now there's an animated series coming.
oh yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, and it's done in a good animation way, not some like perfect example is Altered Carbon season 2 just came out.
Oh right.
Great show. I saw the trailer for the animated series, and I like this is just me, but I hated the animation. Oh my god, did I hate it?
Altered Carbon animated series?
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah, it just the animations. I hate that style, so I immediately was like, oh god damn it. But it'd probably be good. Don't get me wrong, because the story and theme wise is really 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 good, and so the story will probably be really good. I can't stand animation, so I'm probably not gonna to watch it because I hate it. But
that tells a bit of a story too, and that's a good idea for a future episode. I just
kind of went off topic.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's a good point though, because something we can talk about is shows maybe you didn't want to get into because you didn't dig the animation style. I know like Star Wars Resistance has a lot of people view that as a really juvenile animated style, and they weren't thrilled by it.
It's like what I don't like is like it's like they have like real backgrounds and then they put like stickers on it. That's what it makes me feel like.
Where you had like a sticker book as a kid.
Yeah.
Where you had like a picture of the background of the set that the on-set photographer took, and then you'd put the sticker. Yeah,
it's like, so then it's like the characters run around,
like
but the theme
almost like an animated thing where you had like the stickers at the clear background, so you could stick. On.
Yeah, so it's like the stickers are moving, but the background just stays put and nothing moves.
Yeah,
so it's just like, oh, I'm going to move this person around. That's what it feels like on some animation. So I'm just like, I can't. No. Have a everything should be alive.
I'm out.
I'm done.
I'm out. That's a good. I like that. We'll have to come back to that in a future episode. Also, some notes on other future episodes we're looking to have is there are some guests that I'm looking to try and connect with here on the show. Once I get those details more ironed out and solidified, I'll certainly let everyone on the Facebook page and here on the show, Audible wise, I'll let all of you know. And there's some potential things coming down that I'm excited about. If they can happen, the good news is that, you know, with the amount of social interaction everyone's telling people not to take, phone interviews maybe maybe the way of the future. Troy and I are gonna have a pane of glass between us.
No, I don't care. I'll take it. I'll lick your face. I don't care. Whatever.
You know, we had to stop recording the show. Troy and JL just kept having Star Trek II Wrath of Khan moments. The ship out of danger.
W. Though there is, I do one episode coming up. I definitely want to do a review on an upcoming video game that I'm going to be playing.
Is it Cyberpunk?
No, well, yes, when that comes out, but that's
Okay.
way in September, so whatever. But I'm going to tell you right now, though, if this coronavirus closes malls before April 10th, I will burn this motherfucking city to the ground.
Well, I don't know. Like, we've already canceled hockey.
But
Canada doesn't have hockey or Tim Hortons. Are we even Canada?
they better be shipping that shit here quick.
Well, that's the thing, is we live in an economy now where everything's through the mail. So I don't think you need to worry there. But that's a good another topic there we can talk about in the future too. Is video games that were made into series or movies. Like The Last of Us, I heard, is getting
It's getting a series,
so-
which, if done right, and HBO has done some pretty good things, could just knock this shit right out of the park. And
It could.
It could be epic as heck, or not.
Yeah, not everything that's adapted from, as we know, video games are like Sonic. Again, done pretty well, but
Yeah.
for every Sonic, there's a Mario Brothers.
What are you talking about? Mario was amazing. Who doesn't want
The cult classic,
a
but
tiny head for a Goomba? Come on.
John Leguizamo and
I love
Bob Hoskins they had to get tanked on that show just to get through the day. That's a whole other thing in itself. But we're gonna call it end of the show for this particular episode. We'd like to thank everyone for tuning in and listening to us as well as they could with a few technical difficulties we had. But that is the way of it. We're going to try and get back in the studio as often as we can. But currently with the, just pandemic issues aside, the shifts we work are sometimes not always favorable. And now we're on opposite ends. So it's like,
getting together is even a little harder, but
it is. It's not
but
great.
we're definitely going to try.
We are. But in the meantime, we'd like to thank everyone for listening, and please continue liking those posts and feel free to comment on some of the things you guys see on the Facebook page or things you hear.
Please.
Yeah, please. We're not asking people that, hey, make sure you like, share, tell your friends. Like,
whatever.
We're not doing that. If you like it, then tell your friends. Sure. If you don't, you don't have to. We're not looking to get monetized or anything like that. Because to be honest, that's probably more work than we're looking to do.
Well, if changes have to get off the work I'm currently, then I'm down.
That's a good point. Maybe.
I'm down. But anyways,
Yeah.
besides the point.
Something to think about. But in the meantime, everyone, just be careful out there. Be excellent to each other.
Wash your hands.
That's right. Wash your hands.
Social distancing.
Wash your hands
And stop buying toilet paper. I actually need some.
he's not kidding. All right. Thanks very much. I'm JL.